face of sexual abuse, the face of, rape, the face of gender-based violence is a white face in South Africa, based on the evidence. But based on the narrative, based on the media's lens or the filter, is that the face of criminality is black. You have to be a black man to be a criminal. You have to be a black person to violate other people. And white people get to walk into, life and be completely absolved of any guilt or any responsibility in what they're doing.
Salt. Bon appetit.
This is asparagus for broccoli. Wow. Beautiful.
Chisa! Tega, baba ngisaphinda ngedi 2005. Sibaphetha ngengoma labantu. Mbedu, sesibani. Mbedu, what does speak?
It is not a Monday unless it is NOTA Monday. Yes, welcome to Mzake's Kitchen. The food is about to be at your doorstep. Easter weekend, you can start going to Uber Eats and you can order the food. When you do get your deliveries, just take some images there, shoot some videos, and post on all your social media platforms under the hashtag Mzake's Kitchen. You might never know, you end up winning a chance to probably even have lunch with the man himself, Mzake, or win yourself some great prizes. What is Mzake's Kitchen? Mzake's Kitchen is an online restaurant serving classy African cuisine that you can order in Johannesburg. So we're strictly starting in Johannesburg, and as time goes, we will grow to the rest of the country. So if you're around Johannesburg, Easter weekend, which is next week, is it next week? Yeah, next week, we are definitely live online. Be one of the first people to taste the food and post on your social media under the hashtag Mzake's Kitchen. Check out our menu. Let us know what you think. What do you think we can make better? And very soon, we'll also be live on Spaza Eats. We'll be live on Swiper. We'll also be live on Mr. D. That is all before June, before winter. It is not a Monday unless it's not a Monday. The authority is here. Mondays belong to you, bro. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Great past week, I guess. I was enjoying the content that we had on the offering. I saw, who did I see? I saw Dan Corder. I saw Rob Hersov, and I saw myself and Pen. So that was a dope episode. I also saw on the Convo channel the last meetup that I had with Penuel. Also premiered, and yeah, I've been enjoying reading the comments, reading people's reactions, seeing how they're enjoying the content, how they're responding to it, and also just looking at what's been happening, all the stories that have been going around. It's been a pretty eventful past week, the last week that we come from, whether it be the budget, if you are that way inclined, following the politics, all the different political parties have been chipping in to either support or try to convince the Minister of Finance to cancel the VAT that he wanted to introduce on the 1st of May, which is May Day. There's also the Trump tariffs that have just come in. We saw Emancipation Day last week, and we saw people responding to how the Rand was reacting. You know how they like telling us about the Rand. So, I was hoping that you would have asked Rob Hersov that, he at least helps boost the Rand. Since he probably knows who controls it, he can probably phone them and say, listen, we need a better Rand. There was that. There was also on social media, I saw hashtag justice for Cwecwe. Yes, there were protests about that. I saw AfriForum was also involved, discussing whether or not, the principal at the school had any role to play in the child that was, assaulted. That was, a very big story for all of last week. And I see that there's a movement behind getting justice for the 7-year-old girl who was violated. I don't know whether it happened at school or it happened at home. We're still going to find the truth about that. And then eventually, the Omotoso case was concluded. And it's very strange that it's just the Omotoso case, but he's one of the 3 accused because there's 2 other women that were accused there, So that one was a big one. I saw the Minister of Justice responding to it, calling for a Section 33A investigation or full report into the case and the prosecution. So there seems to be an issue between the NPA, who handled the case, and the detectives, the police investigators who collected the evidence, and how the case was conducted, that people feel very hard done by. At the same time, there are people who were celebrating. There was a big, contingent of church members that come from Omotoso's church, that were outside the church celebrating. So it's a very, a complicated, complex story. At the same time, you don't want to hear stories of people being violated. And in this case, there were 30 charges against the accused,
32.
Yeah, over 30 charges against the accused. Thanks for the correction. Over 32 charges, and all of them, fail on technicalities or procedural technicalities within the course of the trial and how the prosecution handled the case. And we need to look at not only our prosecutors and our justice system, but also the public. How is it that a case that is so big and has affected so many people in so many terrible ways, my heart goes out to one of the victims, or one of the alleged victims in this case, Miss Cheryl Zondi. And I think I first saw her when she first testified in the trial. I can't even remember how many years ago it was. It's 5, 6, 7 years
8
ago.
years now.
It's been 8 years.
That's how quickly time flies.
Just imagine. And she's been fighting to get justice for all those 8 years. And at the same time, while she's fighting to get justice, only 3 weeks maybe before the verdict is announced, one of the whistleblowers that was supporting her, was assassinated at her gate. That whistleblower is also a breadwinner. So there's a parent, who was inside that house, who now needs to fend for herself without the daughter that she invested everything into to educate this daughter so that they can get out of that generational debt that we're all born with as Black people. People call it black test. It's generational debt. You're born knowing that you owe it to others to do for them as you progress in your life. Whatever you do as you get forward in life, you know that there's a whole lot of other people, whether they be your relatives or people that are members of your community, that you need to contribute to uplifting. You know what I mean? It's the, I don't want to call it a burden. It's a privilege that is given to us as Black people because, in my faith, believing in God, I don't believe that God would give us any burden that we could not carry, and therefore I can only see it as a privilege that we are blessed with the conditions in which we find ourselves in, that we have to help and raise one another, despite how little we may have or how little we come from, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was the big story, I think, that dominated the headlines and the reactions to it as well. that dominated the headlines. And I'm looking forward to see the outcome of whatever process that the NPA is going through, because I hope that it will not just be looking at this case. There's so many other cases which are not attended to properly. And I'm hoping that there are many other cases that the NPA is sitting on or not prosecuting actually get attended to, and there is some consequences. We've seen so many mistakes being done by the National Prosecuting Authority, and with the responsibility that they have to ensure that the law is upheld, enforced, and is being seen to be justice is seen to being done, I feel like they cannot be making mistakes. I don't think that they are at liberty to be making the kinds of mistakes because of the consequences and how it affects so many people, how it affects how we relate with one another. I mean, this Omodoso case has changed people's relationships with their churches, with their faith, so many other things that have changed because of what was revealed during the course of this case. And I don't think that, we can ever recover our lost innocence, as a people or as a country right now, with all that has happened in the last, let's say, 31 years. But what we can do is that we ensure that for future generations, we know where we went wrong with our society and how it's materializing. And we know how to, improve from where we are right now. So, I think those are the main things. On your side, anything you've been following?
On my okay, let me first start by thanking uNkulunkulu. Sicela ukubonga
Thank you.
You can hear the Cwecwe there.
Yeah.
Asukubahalilisela nje lana.
Hayi sazokubhozisa, sazobhosha.
By the way, this is a robot boy flavor. NOTA is having the ginger one. We've been running straight for 2 months now. I'm starting to get inquiries of people wanting to advertise for NOTA Mondays. It is not a Monday unless it's NOTA Monday. Help us keep the lights on. By the way, me and NOTA don't get paid by doing this, and we haven't been getting paid all along, but we're building a platform such that all you business owners, all you influential peoples in your companies, you're a supervisor at some big company, corporate company, let them know that there's at least 100,000 people who gather every Monday here per episode. On a single Monday, you'll definitely find 1,000 people accumulatively at the same time on a Monday watching at 12 o'clock every Monday. Although we drop 3 times a week, Monday is NOTA Monday, and then it's myself and a guest on a Wednesday, and it's myself and another guest on a Friday. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 12 o'clock, we drop episodes. But for the Monday episode, if you'd like to influence or bring in some advertising on the platform, you will be helping us to keep our lights on. So at least me and NOTA can go out for lunch and invite Mzake to join us. All courtesy of you. And then we'll plug your company. We'll promote you guys. Ask for a rate card. We'll send you a rate card. But I think it's about time now you guys start advertising so we can promo your businesses, but then you pay for it so that we also help us keep the lights on. What I enjoyed last week was to see both of you and Penuel on my timeline on both the Convo Show and on the Hustler's Corner. Because I had him back again with Rob Hersov, last week, Wednesday. But also it was the both of you on the Convo Show on a Monday. And then it was the both of you this side as well. And I saw a lot of comments, people were excited. But hey, we've just finished watching them on the Convo Show. We're watching them here. And then on the Wednesday episode with Penuel, he was not happy. Mr. Hersov was like, what's wrong with Penuel? He's speaking to me while he's on his phone. Has he been captured by someone else on the other side of the phone? Is he reading someone's instruction from the phone?
Yeah.
And then some people are saying, no, Smooth, the next round we wanted with Nota and Mr. Hersov. And then I'm like, no, Nota was very late for that shoot. He was invited on that day. But it's okay. Maybe uNkulunkulu uyenze ukuthi ibe the way ibe ngakhona so that Nota can get his chance and do his thing. And I'm going to make sure on that episode I'm not even on. I'm gonna want to have an extra strong seat as well and just watch Mr. Hersov and Nota. I'm looking forward to that one. So I guess that's what I enjoyed last week.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed SMWX. He had
Zuleika Patel.
yeah, he had Zuleika Patel. That was nice. She's grown. The young girl is grown, and she's
because she was talking about her dad.
I'm saying her.
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying
because
she's
she was
smart.
talking about her dad.
Yeah, no, but she's smart.
But didn't that part touch you?
It did. Because I'm a girl father.
Yeah,
So
no, I
when
do.
girls talk about their dads, like I can relate.
And we don't see too many of those. I think that episode for me, the way she spoke about her father, I tweeted on my timeline, my dad, 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 Zuleika Patel. So I saw she posted it on her Instagram stories. She posted it. So I saw some comments like, hey man, are you jealous or whatever? No, I'm trust me, I'm not jealous. You know what I mean?
You also always talk about your sister, your moms, your dad. Like you were raised in a family.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? And I'm also always talking about my dad, my dad, my dad.
Exactly.
My dad,
That's what it be. Like now we'll find out.
So how can I be jealous? But I just felt like, the reason why I always talk about my dad and I'm so heavy on it is because I'm a black man now. And I didn't know it until I became a black man that there's no empathy for black men. You know what I mean? No one cares how you feel. No one asked my dad if he's gone to therapy. You know what I mean? No one ever asks my dad if he's doing okay. How is he feeling today? You know what I mean? Everyone that speaks to my dad is asking for something, demanding something. Myself, my siblings, my mother, everybody. You know what I mean? We're always demanding of that man. And, other than my mother, obviously, no one really tends to his well-being as a human being. And I think that's universal for many fathers. So when I started feeling it myself, I started feeling the need that, you know what, if there's at least one thing that I can do is speak about my dad. You know what I mean? A lot. Because there's a lot of people that might be feeling the same way or thinking the same thing, but you just, never thought that it was necessary and it is needed. It is needed. It is necessary.
Yeah.
And
also the black family being so much under attack all over the world.
yeah.
It's extremely important to have people like yourselves that celebrate the unity of a black family.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I benefit from the unity of a black family with, my parents as my role models. But aside from just that, the black family dynamic, just the black man, I feel like we always want to attend to the black man in addition to everything else they're attending to.
I get you. But also, as much as you can say the black man, there's a lot of us that feel hard done by last week's case. Era Pastor Omotoso. He can be a black man, but what about the black woman? What about the other victims as well? Not only Usis Cheryl Zondi, but other victims as well.
Yeah.
And what is wrong with the NPA case?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is an issue. And it's because we don't have any fathers.
But Omotoso is a father himself. He's a
That's the thing,
leader.
but he's not a father.
He runs a church.
That's the thing. Is that
He's a father of a church.
yeah, that is what he's become.
And girls in a church rely on Obaba.
Because
He runs the
because
church as a leader.
the father is not in the home. So
Now you're confiding in this father who's got a court case.
and who's a human being.
And yes, I understand that, but there is accusations. And you saw Cheryl Zondi, I mean, as you were saying, for 8 years, bro. She's just been waiting for this verdict. And for us to hear, it's like, did NPA drop the ball or what happened there?
Yeah, no, the NPA did drop the ball. And I think that a process must be gone into to actually look at all the cases where they're dropping the ball, not just that case. That's very important. How do we get ourselves in this situation? It's the fatherlessness crisis. fathers are supposed to protect their children, whether they're boy children, girl children. Fathers are supposed to guide their children. Fathers are supposed to protect the mothers of their children as well. So our mothers right now have got no husbands in their homes, no men in their house, no one to help them with the responsibilities of raising a functional family. And they are desperate. They've got no jobs. They go to pray at the factory where they were supposed to be working. They're praying for miracles. And in that desperate situation, anyone that's in a desperate situation is very easy to exploit. And that's why they're finding themselves in such circumstances, that they're finding themselves victimized in the way that they're being victimized. So if we don't deal with the problems that are causing our people to be desperate, to be vulnerable, you know what I mean? Our black people, no black person can ever say, I was born into the Hersov family and we own mines and we own companies that manufacture foods and whatever. No black person can say that. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's an impossibility, but almost every black person can say, I grew up in a poor family, or I grew up in a single parent household, or I grew up in a child-headed household. You know what I mean? My siblings were my parents. Many firstborns, secondborns, or older children end up being effective parents to their siblings. No one actually sees how our society itself is self-destructing, because those who are more mature, the elder ones, our parents, they're not in a position to provide the type of guidance that we need. And also, they find themselves, in many cases, dependent on us as well. And as a parent, if you're dependent on your child for your livelihood, you can't guide that child. It's the same way people say, there are many women that stay in abusive relationships because they depend on the provision of their abuser. How many parents stay in abusive relationships with their children because they depend on the provision of their children, or how many children are abused by their parents because their parents depend on them for their provision. You know what I mean? There's many stories that we've seen about that. I mean, there's many probably local instances where that has happened, but I mean, an international example is Justin Bieber. If you look at what Justin Bieber is going through right now, starting from the fairy tale that we saw on the screens when his career started to the nightmare that he's living in right now, you can see that there was some sort of abuse in the relationship between his management team, his parents or guardians, you know what I mean, and the people that exploited him within the industry. And it's unfair that, one is expected to overcome such difficulties naturally. It's insane, actually, if you think about the things that as black children you're expected to overcome. Just overcome. Like just a normal thing. Rob Hersov doesn't have to know what tear gas smells like. Or he doesn't know the difference between a tire that's burning and a tire that's burning with someone's body in it. He doesn't know the difference in the smell. Doesn't know the difference of the combination between rubber and flesh. Doesn't know that difference. You know it. You're reliving it. You know that smell. As a black person, those are the things that we know. Just imagine those trauma responses that we have in everything that we do. So while observing what is happening, not only in the reactions to this Omodoso case, not only in the reactions to this justice for Cwecwe case, you know what I mean? We seem to be in a country that is devouring itself. Like we're eating ourselves. You know what I mean? And there's too few people that are actually trying to stop the carnage. Too few people that are allowing themselves to give a helping hand to those in need. And we need we need some, I guess, some sensitivity training. You know, racial sensitivity training. I know Rob Hersov definitely needs some racial sensitivity training. Because they're just certain things that, having never been exposed to them, you'll never understand. You know what I mean? And so you might think, oh no, but why is Penuel on his phone and everything else? You know what I mean? It's because, well, I mean, Penuel is a guy who's opened his mind, opened his heart, you know what I mean, and come onto, I guess, a certain level of prominence and fame that allows him to have an audience now. And now that he's got this audience, he's told his audience, hey, this guy, Rob, you know what I mean? He looks like the enemy, sounds like the enemy, but, you know, he's not a threat. He's quite all right. And I feel like he'd been betrayed by himself in that he was naive enough to believe that our history has not shaped us in such a way that our past stains everything that we do. You know what I mean? And it's so weird to use the word stain because, you know, I heard Rob Hersov speaking about apartheid, colonialism, and he said it's a stain in their history. It's not a stain, it's a crime against humanity. You know what I mean? It's a system in over 400 years. You've abused people, you've exploited them, you've dehumanized them, treated them like animals, even legislated that they're animals. You know what I mean? You didn't just say something that might be interpreted as saying that they're subhuman. You actually enforced laws that proved to them that they're subhuman, you know. And now you're upset that for the past 31 years, you've had to hear about how they felt about being treated as subhuman. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the last 30 years, you know, you can say whatever you want about white people. Yes, you should be able to say whatever you want about white people. You know what I mean? What they've done is evil. In fact, you should not even ever hear the end of it. You know what I mean? We never ask people to say less about the Holocaust. We never ask people to deny that, you know, what happened leading up to World War II is a crime against humanity, it's a genocide. You know what I mean? And if you know what's not a genocide and you know what is a genocide, then you should be actually calling out all the people that are lying about the current situation in South Africa, especially lying about the victimhood of white people, because what they're lying about is their complicity in the crime against humanity. You know what I mean? You're sanitizing that in some way and saying, hey, everybody pick yourselves up by your bootstraps, you know, and trying to counter the narrative by funding media organizations that are going to speak to the right sensibilities is not helping. You know what I mean? You are saying, oh, we are divided. Okay, there's people to the left of us, there's people to the right. Okay, well, let's amplify the voices on the right. You're not going to win over people, you know what I mean, that already have an opposed belief to what you have. You're just going to ensure that now you've also got a louder voice. And if you feel that the voice of the left was too loud for too long, now you've got two loud voices, just further dividing each other, further dividing one another.
It takes me back to what you were saying about Biz News the other day.
You know what I mean?
And for some reason, as much as it's an awesome channel, and they're doing great content, but I can sort of feel the biasness when I watch the channel.
Yeah.
Like some channels you watch and you can feel that there might be bias some channels, but you see they're making an effort to be neutral. I think platforms like about Biz News, like what you said the last time, is you can literally feel it 9-9. And I don't know if it's like Futabanandaba. That's how you feel.
The thing is this, is that we're so trained to not get triggered by racism. Do you see how well behaved Penuel was in that episode? He never jumped, he never got angry.
But you saw him like...
But that's because he was internalizing, because as black men, again, we teach ourselves to deal with the situations. You know, there's so many situations in which I watched my father get humiliated in front of me, you know, and knowing that he could have confronted it, some parts of me, would be like, but, he shouldn't have to put up with that. But at the end of the day, my father would always tell me, as long as I can take care of my kids, I'm here to take you guys to school. It doesn't matter what anybody on the street can say about me, how they can disrespect me. You know what I mean? My job is you guys. And that's it. And I'm not going to do anything that will jeopardize that, So when I listen to Biz News, each and every single time, I can hear when they're talking about black people and undermining us. You know what I mean? I can hear when they're talking about, when they're using the ANC as a code word for black people. You know what I mean? They're saying, yeah, the ANC, what, the ANC did this, the ANC did this. You know what I mean? But what they mean is that, black people have ruined everything. And just how they feel, especially, the elites, they feel like everyone should just be able to move on. Like everyone should be able to move on. Come on, we've got a country to run. Let's just move on. None of them want to actually say, let's fix our issues. Let's fix our problems, And it becomes very difficult to have a robust discussion. So I was very glad that you asked him to explain the inexplicable comments that he made at that Biz News conference. I mean, the only thing that makes his comments acceptable to me, right, is that they weren't the worst. They weren't the most racist or anti-black comments. In fact, the most racist and anti-black comments that were made in that whole entire Biz News conference were made by our former president's younger brother, Mzake. And
what did he say?
What did he not say? What did he not say? He did not say that, because of his privileged position, being born to an ANC stalwart, having a brother who's a president, being on boards of state-owned entities and big corporations, benefited him. He called out other people, your Tokyo Sehwales, your Smatsungwanyamas, your Mzimkumalos, and all the other big nail era BE beneficiaries, for me, it's the pot calling the kettle black, number one. And on top of that, he then goes out to say that the DA should be getting 51% of the vote. Now, there's a reason why people do not vote for the DA. I voted for the DA before, a long time ago, in local elections, and I'm still regretting it to this day because we still have the same, councillor, we still have water problems. In fact, my mother sent me a text just the other day, 2 days ago, saying that there's a water problem. The other week, there was an electricity problem, like 4 days, there was no electricity. People have to move their meat into other people's fridges for a week because, they're fixing something. And when I voted for the DA, or when we voted for the DA as a family, we thought, okay, this is for service delivery. It's not going to affect policy because we're not voting for them in parliament. We're voting for them just locally, to deal with whether our rubbish is picked up on time and everything else. It was out of frustration. It had nothing to do with whether we believed that they would deliver services better. It had to do with, let's try something different and see if this works better for us. And objectively speaking, it hasn't really worked better for us, having lived in a ward that's been DA since that day. I think that was some 2011 elections, I think, when I voted for the DA at first, or I can't remember the exact year. But from what I'm seeing in my community, I don't think that right now the DA can stand on any mountaintop and shout that, they're the best when it comes to service delivery. I think Action SA has shown them up in Tshwane already. I travel to the Western Cape a lot. I know how it is. Have you ever been to Mbekweni?
Mm.
Just imagine. Do you know what Mbekweni means?
Mm.
It's a place of respect. A place of
Or Mbeko, yeah, respect. Mbekweni, yeah, a place of
it's the most
respect.
undignified place to
Just, are you serious? This is in Cape Town?
live. In Paarl.
Or in Paarl? So
Between Paarl and
I know
Wellington.
Nyang, I know Ilang, I know Guguletu, Khayelitsha, I know all of those townships.
Have you ever
but
been to Durance?
Mbekweni, I've never been.
So if you go to the farming towns outside of Cape Town, that's the thing is that, yes, the Cape Flats inside the city, that's bad as well. But also the farming communities. If you go further out, it's much worse over there.
And that's where Jan van Riebeeck arrived at.
That's where they set up all their first stations.
When they settled here,
Yeah,
when our problems began.
in the words of Jacob Zuma. I think our problems began even before that, but
our major problems, when
Yeah.
people took our land.
yeah. So that's another thing that, I feel very upset by, is that, we live with colored people. We are so upset at this Omotoso case and making Omotoso a monster. You need to understand that the mere fact that there's such a large community of colored people means that colonizers came here and raped a lot of women. The evidence is alive, is breathing. You know what I mean? To this day. The face of sexual abuse, the face of, rape, the face of gender-based violence is a white face in South Africa. Based on the evidence. But based on the narrative, based on the media's lens or the filter, is that the face of criminality is black. You have to be a black man to be a criminal. You have to be a black person to violate other people. And white people get to walk into, life and be completely absolved of any guilt or any responsibility in what they're doing. There's a case right now, aside from this Justice for Cwecwe case, which is also another child sexual abuse case. There's a case of child pornography. A young white man, I think he's 33 years old. He's my age. You know what I mean? It's being heard at the Randburg Magistrates Court. He was caught, I don't know, with how many terabytes of child porn.
Sure.
Just imagine how many children are being violated at scale. They're violating kids on an industrial scale, to the point that they've got terabytes of it, of that violation. And there's no protests outside the Randburg Magistrates Court. There's no movement behind them. There's no one that's funding calls for justice and calls to actually prosecute these people that are, producing this content, that are contributing to the human trafficking crisis that we've got in South Africa. And on the other side of that as well, people are naive, they're blind, they're not seeing. A lot of women have been misled, have been fooled. They think that there's some sort of liberation that they're getting by embracing their sexuality publicly. You know what I mean? They're freeing themselves. But what they're doing is that they're trading their dignity for attention. They're getting attention. A lot of people are addicted to attention. They love attention. You know what I mean? If I wanted attention right now, I would strip naked on this camera. Strip naked, I know it will get millions of views. I've got dignity. I have to dress up. I wear my dignity. I'd rather have my dignity than that attention. So the attention that they seek and that they want, right, is something that is spreading like a contagion. Everybody now wants attention. I saw a video that was being reacted to by one of my favorite YouTubers now, because I love watching her content. It makes me angry enough to keep watching. The content that makes me angry, that's what I watch the most, actually. And I think people should actually try that too. The more it makes you angry, the more you watch it, you know what I mean? So that you're not only trapped in your own perspective and your own belief system. So Citizen Concerned posted a video about a young girl. I think I didn't watch the video because as soon as I saw a young girl in school uniform and I saw that it has to do with something about dancing inappropriately, I'm like, I don't watch this. I'm not the target market. I'm not a sick person. You know what I mean? I don't take delight in seeing young girls that look like me being violated. You know what I mean? Whether it's being violated like physically or being held or being used, like photos of them, videos of them being used to attract the wrong sort of attention. Because what sort of attention are you trying to attract by showing a girl, a young child that is dancing inappropriately? Whose attention are you trying to get? You know what I mean? And why is it that you are able to post other people's children for whatever content that you're trying to make? So with all of that, young girls that are growing up are being trained into discarding their dignity at the earliest convenience. You know what I mean? I saw someone posting an OnlyFans link, and someone said, so you skipped ShopRite. You couldn't get a job at ShopRite. You couldn't get a job nyana at EPSA. You know, but I mean, there's no more jobs at EPSA now these days. You know, you couldn't get a small nyana call center job. You went straight to giving away your dignity and selling your body online. And it's been normalized. It's like, yes, that's a normal decision that a young girl can take. And there's no condemnation that is coming from the women. So as much as they are right to be upset and to be outraged at the outcome of the Omodoso case because of how it was handled. I know a lot of people were watching that trial. I watched some of that trial, and also the way it was handled, especially the cross-examination, I felt, was literally throwing the case. You know what I mean? I mean, it looked like, the way in which the prosecution handled the case, it looked like there was a brown envelope that was involved in them. That's what it looked like. You know what I mean? It just is so terrible. I'm not close enough to the case to be able to prove that, but to make it worse, someone who was part of whistleblowing on the case and an investigation ends up being killed. You know what I mean? So someone dies, the case is being mishandled by the prosecution, and the case eventually collapses, and there's an acquittal on what procedural or technical grounds and as to how the case was being handled. So there's there's outrage about that. Where is the outrage for the fact that especially South African black girls are being posted online to be used to promote sex tourism in South Africa? That is it. Is young girls from UKZN who are cheerleaders dancing for varsity rugby games, you know what I mean, are now being used in content, and the comments about it. And then I see women react and saying, oh, we're being sexualized, we're being this. And I'm like, but let me look at your timeline. This is you, back shots. This is you wearing your underwear. This is you showing us cleavage. This is you showing us camel toe. This is you fighting for attention.
What is camel toe?
No among us. No. I know. Isn't it? It's abantu abasha. No.
Uzozimala. Wemanyonyo bapeka lehoshu isikoti umfazi wami.
Yaphasi kwesicepeza.
Ithi yenzani?
It is Petit Sinjojo.
That's your camel toe. I box my head.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, yeah.
I'm just
No. I know that. I know that. So yeah. So they post that. You know what I mean? Baitan, and especially at Jimmy.
Even the team. Bona nasikhuluma ngenguzo abachazeka.
No. Anxiety nase Jimmy mina. Because the camel toe is just too much. Bayenza ngamabomu.
Esamashanga amanye amathayini wesimanje manje abosestate. Athi ayadonsa kanje angena la
Yeah. Athi zanwe kanjalo. Hayi.
Sanokungena kule
No.
so that ukhona ukulunguza lapha.
No. So
Siyanazi.
and for them they think it's innocent enough, but they are not seeing the effects that it's having. It's role modeling for the younger girls. When your daughter starts wearing dresses, starts playing dress up as a child, it's role modeling. She starts playing with dolls. The dolls are going to do what the child sees her mother doing. You watch children play, they play with their toys, and they reenact what they've seen their parents doing, what they've seen elder people doing. So if they're now watching iPad, Cocomelon, Instagram, and all these things online, they're no longer playing with dolls like they are. And the content that is on these platforms, even TikTok, they know how to make OnlyFans promotional content for TikTok. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you can see that this TikTok is promoting an OnlyFans. Just by looking at it, you can see that, okay, clearly there's, like, if I go to the Instagram page, I'll find the other link and then I'll see the OnlyFans or what. You can see.
Serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now that all this content is on there, kids are being made to twerk, you know what I mean? John Vuligate trended. Then we find out that the girls are still in high school. Then all of a sudden, everyone feels like a pedophile because they watch this content. But the reason why they normalized it is because that sort of content is being shown to us and promoted. It's shown in all the music videos. And it was in foreign music videos at first. But then, because we wanted to be on the same level as what we see happening in Hollywood, we copied that as well. And we started seeing it in our music videos and it being normalized within our culture. And now it's normal. You know what I mean? In fact, it would be wrong for you to call out a woman that's dressing inappropriately. You know what I mean? If you watch The Breakfast Club, for our international viewers, there's a show on radio in the United States called The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and DJ Envy and Jess Hilarious. Right? And who's that other girl?
What happened to Angela Yee?
She's got her own show. She's got her own separate show.
That one, le khuluma ngento zasebsu.
And no, she's got another show.
Oh, she's got a show.
Her own show, yeah.
On Power.
The tea with Angela.
Oh, not the. But she also has a podcast, right?
Yeah, her own show.
Khuluma ngezomtavazo.
I don't know.
No, she's got a podcast. Yeah, khuluma ngento zabantu.
Yeah, you see, I don't watch that sort of content. You know what I mean?
What do you think of Jess Hilarious? No, I was just asking because she was a co-host.
Yeah, no, Jess Hilarious as well. I felt like the way she dealt with the drama surrounding the new co-host that is being brought in, it just shows the amount of work we need to do on Black women.
Because she's been there for about 1.5 years, if not 2 years now. I think she started just after COVID-19.
She started during the COVID times after Angela Yee left. She left and went on maternity leave. When she comes back, someone who's better at the job that she was asked to do is there. And unfortunately, as sisters, we need to respect that sometimes, there's only one seat at the table in the broadcast. And you need to want the best person for the job to do that job, even if it's another Black woman.
So they got in somebody else now to replace her.
They put someone else as
to
a stand-in.
Yeah.
And now...
And that person kicked ass.
That person is kicking ass.
Or even now she's still on there.
And she comes from TMZ, she's a producer from TMZ. So, if you come from TMZ, it's like if you come from Shwashwi and now you're on a Smolanyana blog. I mean, whoever you find there on that Smolanyana blog, I come from Shwashwi. I mean, I'm gonna, you know what I mean?
Like,
yeah.
Bachukara once said the same thing, how he got his show on Josie FM. Uguti, somebody had gone on leave. And then they put him on a big show to say, stand in. And then he kicked ass. And the management ended up asking that person, so we want to go leave. And that Fresh used to say that as well. But even when I go on leave, I love my job so much so that I know when to come back quickly. Not to stay for too long. Because once they put in a stand-in who kicks ass, the audience ends up getting used to that new person. Or management starts reconsidering.
Or maybe the audience didn't like you. And they like this.
Maybe they just had to tolerate you.
And you know what I mean? And you need to accept that. So the way in which they dealt with that whole entire situation showed me that, our sisters need training, especially as Black women. We can't progress like this with this pull her down syndrome amongst our Black sisters. That stops them from working effectively together, continuously and consistently, over periods of years. We haven't been able to see that. There is no a group of women that has benchmarked this for us. So, or at least set the standard, to say this is how sisters support one another. So the way in which they supported that is the same way in which I see this reaction to the over-sexualization of young women. It's a more sinister way of doing it. Let me put it to you like this. It's as if someone, let's use Jess Hilarious as an example of this, right? Let's say I told Jess Hilarious to go on maternity leave, knowing that the person that's going to replace her when she comes back from maternity leave is going to take her job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of me saying, Jess Hilarious, this person that's going to replace you while you're on maternity leave is someone that can take your job. While you're on maternity leave, you need to pick up your socks. You need to do some more research. You need to do some more speaking practice. You know what I mean? You need to make sure that whatever you come back with is so much better than what you left behind that this person goes back to their role. So what we're seeing our young sisters doing is not to say, young sister, I see you're getting 2,000 likes for your bikini picture or your back shot and whatever. The attention that you're getting is going to trap you into being addicted to that attention, and is going to distract you from focusing on your goals that will actually help you get further in life. If you look at all the girls that are independent and able to take care of themselves, let's say the girls that are taking care of guys, there's these Nigerian guys that are now taking advantage of our sisters or whatever. They're buying them cars and everything else. The sisters that have PhDs, doctors, whatever, professionals. If you look at those sisters are not the type that can post themselves on the timeline to get attention, right? But they can take care of a grown man. Never mind taking care of themselves. They can take care of any daughter from somewhere else and take care of him, put him in a Mercedes-Benz and everything else. What would you rather be? Would you rather be taken care of, taken advantage of, vulnerable, sexually assaulted? Or would you rather be scammed of money that you've worked hard for, that you can work hard again and make again? You know what I mean? I'd rather be scammed of my money. I'd rather they take whatever, because I know I can work hard. I know I'm confident. I know that it's fine. Even if they took that, I'll make some more. Then if they take something from me that is irreplaceable, which is my dignity, and your youth is not forever as well. So you're losing the energy that you'll need to reinvest in yourself and uplifting yourself. As the years go by, it becomes more and more difficult. It becomes harder to explain why it is that you're unable to take care of yourself. It becomes harder to forgive. So I want to see less women silent. And I also want to see young women calling out the older women that are misleading young women. Why? Because those older women now know that they've got a responsibility to the younger women that are looking up to them. The same way young men call us out. There's nothing you do that you don't get called out on.
All the time. All the time. Every month. Actually, every other week.
Every day.
And I'm so used to it.
Actually, every day.
And I'm okay with it. Yeah.
In fact, every hour. If you check the comments, every hour there's someone...
And I like that.
It
keep me in check.
It's humbling.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do for our sisters. We need them to understand the importance of keeping one another in check. We need them to be less obsessed with keeping us as men in check, and to be more discerning in the type of men that they allow to come around them. Another one of our sisters, Mrs. Brenda, talented actress, brilliant. You know what I mean? I think...
The late, great Mam Brenda Fass.
No. Brenda Ngol.
Brenda
Ngol.
This is Brenda Ngol, okay.
Yeah.
What about her?
So I fell in love with her acting on Bubomsana. You remember that?
Yeah.
I think they only did 1 season of it, or 2 seasons. I think for me, that was the best series I've ever seen in South Africa, ever. ever. You know what I mean? But I think it had too little Zulu, too much Xhosa. And TV likes too much Zulu, so it wasn't good enough to stay on SABC One. But right now, she's been having battles with her mother. She's been struggling to provide a stable environment for her daughter. And also, at the same time, she's had conflict with the father of her daughter and that relationship. And all I can see in all of this is a supremely talented woman, right? That doesn't know the value of her purpose. Because all the patterns I'm seeing are self-destructive patterns. It's my mother told me I was nothing. I believe I am nothing. I'm talented, so now I'm on TV. Everyone tells me I'm something. So maybe I might be something. But in the back of my mind, I grew up knowing that I am nothing. And I'm just taking from her words and, what I've seen, because there was a blow up where her and her mother were having an argument. And I feel like it's the extreme end of just, the mother-daughter rivalry that you have. You know what I mean? Like within my own family, all of us, the boys, the sons, we live in Fourways, right next to my mom. You know what I mean? Laundry is 5 minutes away. For me to get my laundry done takes 5 minutes. You know what I mean? My sister lives in Norwood. Why? Because she wants to make sure that mama can't call. Hey, mtanam, please do this. Hey, things like that. You know what I mean? That is normal. But now when it is about taking away the dignity of the child and the innocence of the child, what her mother is not noticing is that abuse that she's pouring into her daughter is being poured into her granddaughter. And if the same upbringing brought her into such a self-destructive path in which she would fall in love with someone, right? And it's I don't know who said this, I listen to podcasts and I don't watch them on YouTube. So sometimes when I'm listening to PNC, people need comedy, legam pop-ups on the McGee's network. I don't know who's speaking, but I know what the words they said. They said something. They said, sex produces babies, not love. No, it wasn't actually a PNC. No, they were talking about something else, but it was similar. They spoke about this case. That's why I brought it up. But it was Higher Learning with Van Lathan and Rachel Lynn Lindsay. It's on the Ringer network. Van Lathan is the guy who confronted...
I know Van.
Oh, yeah, he confronted Kanye on TMZ, for those that don't know. That's the guy, when he said slavery is a choice. So the guest said, sex produces children, not love. So you fall in love with someone, and you know what I mean? And you end up engaging, and now you've got a child. Now that child is both of your responsibilities. And their upbringing is both of your responsibilities. If you're not ready for that responsibility, you're committing a crime against the child. You know what I mean? You're ensuring that they don't have a great life, a great upbringing. And that is criminal. Just because you gave into your desires momentarily, So for us to understand our value and our purpose is very important, because it prevents us, or it motivates us against getting into situations like that, where you feel like, I might like this person, we might be attracted to each other, but if we take this further without taking the necessary precaution, all of a sudden there's an innocent third party involved, and we haven't fixed whatever is an issue amongst us, ourselves, we don't know whether we can pour into a child and provide a loving home for them. So it perpetuates, it repeats itself, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the people that we see on TV, we see them as role models because they've had the escape velocity to get out of obscurity, of just being, a normal person that can walk down the street, that doesn't get bothered, of being the old Scots Mapuma, not the new Scots Mapuma, the new Scots Mapuma, by Mflupa everywhere he goes. ayekho umuntu onama-fans ukudlula uScott Maphuma. Ayinkinga ama-fans Scott Maphuma. Ayinkinga. Ayinkinga. Mabeze kithi sobanaka. So now you're getting into that and you're a role model and your base from back home is not the same. You know, there's something that I want us to speak about towards the end, but a part of it, I was with my dad just yesterday, and he was bragging to people, you know, he was trying to explain, you know, yes, my child, he's had lots of white friends growing up. And he used to sleep over at their houses all the time. And I interjected, I said, but tell them that they used to sleep over at our house as well. You know what I mean? In fact, they used to sleep over at our house more, you know. My mom's cooking was better than their mom's cooking. It was. Their mothers knew. Their mothers knew. And their mothers didn't like cooking anyway. You know what I mean? Their mothers didn't like cooking. So, you know, we always had good food at home, you know. And those are just a small thing like that. You know, small thing like that is being proud of the home that you come from. No, serious. Mele wazi ukuthi ulet lakho malishaye iplate mfana. Hey, ulet lami yalishaye ipoto.
Sure.
Ulet lami.
Maro angeke ucompare ukupheka oleli lengami nokupheka oleli wodaki.
No, that's true.
I mean,
That's true. That's true. They
chalk and cheese.
No, we spoke about this in the beginning. They didn't
Sure.
grow up with the burden of having to cook for their siblings like we did. You know what I mean? Pelatina, as soon as you turned 8, 9, as soon as you're tall enough.
Sauce still feed.
Sauce still feed. Mawufika nje hayi. Wenze kahle ukhulile manje sozogeza izitsha. Hey, you know, you take turns. One day you're cooking, the other day ugeza izitsha. You know what I mean?
Oh, gezizitsha.
Yeah.
Sathi uthi uyolala ndoda uthi hey, lezitsha ucanga ukuthi zizogeza ubani. Angeke lezitsha zizigeza buya. That time aboma-9 ebusuku ndoda uphethe ubuthongo.
Aye mamas.
Awuna dikotlolo tse ditoroba la motlung.
Aye mamas.
Sehaka motho mo tlatsa and then the next thing you must take pizza ela ya papa uthele metsi at least maradijwana di hlatsuwe at least izitsha zigezi but izitsha zigeziwe but you can't sleep nezitsha izitsha zila.
No, you can.
Not edladleni.
No, githi.
Mina umama mbekakutshela kahle azikho izitsha ezila.
My mom was mean.
At least the only thing ibhodo lepapa nakhona olifaka
No.
after uqeda ukwasha izitsha nezinki becleanisule grand.
Aye. Oded Lako was too soft on you. Mina Oded Lambelis was our 4 exen. She'd allow us to sleep. I'm a boom.
Your mom was soft on you.
No.
My mom
was on 4.
izitsha baba.
No. I understand as ladi. Trust me. Mama was on 4. You're right when the dream is getting nice. Mama was on 4.
That's when you end up getting amaphela because izitsha ziyalala izinki.
And then you never leave the dishes anymore. Because back on 4, you're like, yo, I know I won't make that mistake. Before I even go to sleep, let me just do that. I know that things are 1 or 7 or 6 or whatever. So different moms have different ways in which they do it. But either way,
they don't care, my man. They'll open a curtain is like when the sun is up and then the sun hits your face.
What 12 for
They remove the blankets.
Imagine. All of those things.
No, until you can't
Never. No, I'm just saying those are things that my cousins.
They'll wake up at 6.
My sister.
They'll wake up at 6
cousin.
and still say, Mini kangako sakele.
Exactly.
That time it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Imagine.
But they are saying Mini kangako.
Imagine.
Intanga zakho kudala sezibhizi.
Imagine.
Zisesikoleni or ziyaphanda wemele ngalesikhathi.
Imagine. My mother sends me Bible verses by 6 a.m. in the morning. I know that, so I'm awake for that. So the training, that's my mother.
That's nice.
My mother just sent me a Bible.
Nice. My mom does the same. Sure.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. Hey, this is the prayer I had for you, my son, this morning. But all of that I'm saying, and everything that we're saying, right? We're agreeing on. That family base is very important. You know what I mean? So the not sleeping before washing the dishes or being woken up at 4 a.m. and everything else is the home training that trains you for the outside world, where you're going to be confronted with challenge and people criticizing A, B, C, and D, you know what I mean? And you need to form yourself. It's not done to dehumanize us or insult us. And it's not that our mothers are like, yo, you're a dishwasher. That's your job. You've been brought into this world to wash the dishes here at home, and this is all you'll end up doing. No, they're not saying that. But that base that we come from, whether you come from, a middle class or lower class family, it forms you. It forms the relationships that you make. It forms the choices that you make. You know what I mean? It forms whether you know whether someone is good for you or good to you. There's a very different, things. Someone who's good for you and someone who's good to you. Someone who's good to you might be good to you, but they're bad for you. You know what I mean? Oh, it's nice for you. It's convenient. It's a joke. And this cannot be helped unless we insist on a massive campaign to re-socialize people, especially young people. So we spoke about someone on a previous episode, maybe 4 episodes ago.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting her name. She used to tell stories on SABC 1.
I wish you not Mam Kenamshaba, I wish you Mam Tunokwe.
The one who was speaking to Minister of Arts and Culture.
Umama Lona.
Yes. So she used to read stories and all that type of stuff on SABC 1 growing up on Kidio, and she raised us, and seeing her in the condition that she's in, is like, damn, we're not taking care of our mothers. We're not taking care of our mothers. Just as a society, many, many children were told and taught folklore stories and were raised by that woman, So she's a mother to almost all of us, who grew up watching SABC 1 or Kidio. And we need to protect those mothers. Why? So that we show the world and the people that are watching that there's value in what they've brought to our lives. We need to respect them and ensure that they stay dignified in their lives. And we're not doing that. So a lot of work needs to be done. We need to take a better care of our grandmothers. Our grandmothers are left in rural...
Oh, Mama Nandinyembe.
Yes.
Yes. Mama Nandinyembe.
Yes. So I think the minister donated like 20,000 rands to her. She's come on hard times. She posted a video before. She's had troubles with her son. And that's our responsibility as black men, is that those of us who are not living in desperation need to reach out to those who are, and encourage them and tell them that they are worth fighting for. You have to fight for yourself. You're worth fighting for. But you won't fight for yourself if you don't believe you're worth fighting for, if you don't believe you're worth anything, if you believe that you're a burden, So her son is unable to take care of her. She was unable to attend to her son's upbringing the whole time because of the work that she did. The work that she did helped us get raised up and know our culture, know, our folklore stories and everything else. So she sacrificed what she needed to pour into her own children to pour into everybody else's children. She cannot be punished for that. In fact, we need to find ways in which we can assist her. We need to find ways in which we can assist her son. Her son does not feel good, the fact that his mother has to ask strangers for help. No son feels good knowing that their mother depends on strangers, that they cannot, you understand? It kills your soul as a young man.
It does,
I
know at some point I was traveling overseas. My mom couldn't get a hold of me. I was not even aware. She ended up having to ask one of my friends who assisted. Hey, young pata blind.
You can't do that. You know what I mean?
So I know that feeling. Like,
even when you're in a position where you need to lean on your parents for assistance, it feels bad. Why? Because we've been trained to believe that as young black kids, our first goal is to grow up so that we can take care of ourselves and in addition also take care of our parents or take care of our siblings if need be. You know what I mean? That's what we've been trained with. So we're not taking care of our families. We're not taking care of ourselves. We're unable to because of the economic situation. And that is causing us to get into the self-destructive pattern. That is causing us to look at a poster on the side of the road, not know anything good that this preacher has done, but be so desperate for a miracle that we go to that church, searching for a miracle in desperation. Whatever it is, whatever snake oil they're serving there, we're buying it up. We're eating it up. Because we don't love ourselves, we don't care for ourselves. We have lost our dignity, and we need to fight for our dignity everywhere. So right now, the way I'm seeing it, especially after I've reflected on in the past couple of episodes, I didn't tell you that yesterday, actually, I went to the Human Rights Commission.
Oh,
Yes.
how did that go?
Well, I mean, it's confidential.
Okay.
Well, I mean, most of it is confidential.
Okay.
So
So you're not allowed to speak about it in public.
we're still in the middle of the process.
process is still on.
It's not been concluded. I haven't signed on the papers
Okay.
as yet. But what I can speak about, is what they told me about the work that they do. I've been seeing, yes, the Human Rights Commission does this, A, B, C, D, but until I had to engage and interact with them, because first they sent a demand letter, they said they reviewed the episode, they saw some prima facie evidence, which obviously I didn't agree with, but because of the stature of the institution itself, I felt like whether or not I agree with them, I would like the opportunity to engage with them directly. So I asked them for a meeting, and they agreed. In response to the letter they sent me, and they agreed. And in the meeting, I was accompanied by my dad. Actually, my dad joined me. I was at the meeting. My dad said, no, can't go there by yourself. I'm getting an Uber. So my mom got him an Uber. And then he came to join us. And there was a lady who spoke during the meeting at some point. Her name begins with an M-A. I think it's Marissa. No, Martina, sorry. Martina. Yes, her name is Martina. And she's researched over 600 cases of human rights violations, abuses, or complaints.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when she was talking about her reflections, I found it to be very empathetic in one way, because although she was busy, there was a memorandum that were being handed that day at 1 p.m. and my meeting with them was at 2 p.m. So we had to wait like 15 minutes for my dad to arrive. So she arrived in the meeting just before 3 because she was attending to that memorandum that was being handed down. So she missed the first part of what I spoke about.
Yeah.
And what I spoke about when I was speaking to Professor Madlingos and Commissioner Sitole, who are in the room, who's the legal head of the Gauteng office or the commission. And I explained to them that there's a great provocation that's going on, especially within our media space, within the podcasting space. And I explained to them that, this platform or what we do on this platform is an educational platform. We speak about social issues. We speak about a whole lot of things. We speak about politics. We speak about music. We speak about entertainment. We speak about food. We speak about kotas, And I expressed to them that, especially within that episode, if you take it in the context of the episode itself and the episodes leading up to that as well, and the responses and reactions to what was going on around the world, even geopolitically, were encapsulated in that episode to create a sort of understanding, especially amongst our Black audience, to say that they should not be incited by provocations that they're seeing, whether it be apartheid denialism, the glorification of, colonialism, or the aggrandization of white and Western culture at the expense of Black culture, the dehumanization that they get, whether it be racial abuse, the effects of the systemic racism that we're confronted by. That was the purpose of what we're saying, is that do not now think that we need to engage in violence to demand our human rights, to demand our right to dignity, to demand a decent life. Do not feel that. They had over 400 complaints that they received. They deal with 6,000 complaints when it comes to human rights issues. And when it comes to issues that are related, there's 7,000 complaints that come in per year.
So they had 400 complaints about that specific episode.
Only that episode.
Sure.
So in as much as I know for a fact there was never an intention to dehumanize or, or to even call people animals, which is the allegation, or which is what they thought there was prima facie evidence of. Because I know that there was a part where I was comparing, a normal dog that you keep in your house to a wild dog, or a trained dog to a dog that's untrained. Never was I saying that any human being is a dog. I was talking about if we are to compare different types of human beings to different types of dogs, what is the expected behavior of a trained dog, domesticated dog, as opposed to a wild dog. Now, the way in which we've been bastardized with our culture is that when we speak about Western culture and we are critical of it and objective, if I say white culture is savage, it is violent, it's very easy in a world where white culture has been valorized, where it's been celebrated, for someone to feel offended by that to the point where they think that it is undermining or it's discriminatory. It's not. It is objective. It is a matter of fact. If I say Moses Sithole is a savage, he killed however many people, no one's got a problem with it. Why? Because I'm speaking about a Black person. So when you're honest about white people, you get 400 complaints. When you're honest about Black people, you get 0 complaints. When you lie about Black people and call them dogs and all those types of things, you get 0 complaints as well. So as we are looking at the audience that we are speaking to, we are also acutely aware that a large part of our audience is not seen by the world. Our Black audience, they're not seen. Anything that hurts them, offends them, no one cares about. No one cares about. So when people go out there say, the Black people are murdering the farmers, they're violent, they're jeopardizing food security, they're lazy, they cannot compete on merit. All of those things are provocations. What we're being implicitly told is that as a Black person, you must keep quiet and accept that. We must accept the disrespect that is coming from these Westerners, these capitalists, evangelists. We must accept it. We must never respond. We must never call it out. And I objected to that. Now, what Martina did say is that as much as she understood that, right? And you must also understand that she never heard me say any of these things. These are the things I said to Professor Majingos and Commissioner Sithole without her present in the room. She alluded to them herself when she entered the room. She said, there's many provocations. There's many instances in which we need to call out racism, subtle racism, systemic racism, systemic oppression. There's many instances, but we need to be smarter about it because there's legal precedent. There's court cases that have been done. Right now, Ronaldo Jose is in trouble because the courts have ruled that the K word and not the Arabic kafir, which is the tattoo under Peter's sixth arm. No, the K word that is used to racially abuse black people cannot be used in any context under law. There's a court ruling on that. So you are coming onto a camera, you don't know that as Ronaldo Jose. That, yes, you said it in a different context, but under the law of precedence, because of the court cases that have already been ruled in this matter, in any context that you use it, whether using it as an example, it is wrong. So you need to be smarter about how you make that example. You need to choose your words wiser, So I feel as in that engagement and that opportunity that I had to speak to the commissioners at the SA Human Rights Commission helped me understand the importance of the work that they need to do. We've spoken over an hour about the work that needs to be done for us to see ourselves better, for black men to be seen better, for black women to see themselves better, for us as South Africans to see each other better and see one another better, irrespective of what racial groups or cultural groups we belong to. Work needs to be done because no work was done since 1994. They thought that we'd figure it out ourselves. All of us have been trained in a racist system. All of us are racist. All of us believe black people deserve less because we've been trained to believe that. We have to fight that. Every day you have to wake up in the mirror and remind yourself, snap out of this, snap out of the indoctrination that tells me that I'm lesser, that I deserve less. You know what I mean? Snap out of the indoctrination. Because why? It's very easy to accept it. Because when you drive in the streets and every single person that you see that is poor is black, you start to believe that that is the position that black people belong in. And then you stop being angry when you see black people on the streets that are poor. And that anger is what is the fuel that is needed to motivate you to do something to change the situation. But if you keep seeing it and it's normalized to you, and no one does anything about it, we're not upset that his life is not materializing the way it could have. No one is upset that this guy's not living up to his full potential. We've accepted that he's living up to, the lowest potential that he has. That says something about how we see ourselves as well. Because that person looks just like us. You know what I mean? And I want a good life, not only for me, but for everyone that looks like me as well. You know what I mean? I don't want to see people that look like me suffering. And I don't want to see people that look like me suffering and think that it's acceptable. I don't want that. I don't want any child to grow up like that. Your child will grow up, the first time your child sees a hobo, they'll say, "Daddy, why is that person on the street?" You have to explain it to your child. And then after a while, you don't have to explain it to your child. And you don't then also think that, damn it, now that I don't have to explain it to my child, does this mean that my child has internalized that this is the position that black people need to be seen in? Those are the things that we're up against. We're fighting all those things. And if the Human Rights Commission's job is only to speech police, oh, you said this on what podcast? Okay, let's stop you from saying that. And it's not proactive, going out there into communities, going into schools, ensuring that gender sensitivity programs are done, racial sensitivity programs are done from an early age as part of early childhood development. At the stage where the kids are being put in experiments to choose which one is more trustworthy, the black baby's face or the white baby's face. We've seen those videos. The BBC has done them and produced them. At that very stage, that is the stage that we need to start teaching the kids. There needs to be a concerted effort into that because the society that is growing and developing right now is self-destructive. It's self-destructive and there's too few role models to make up for all the bad outcomes that come from us not having intentional parenting, intentional family values, and a consistency in how we deal with people that go against the norms and values of our society. if you're rich or if you speak well, if you've got an accent, maukumsha, or all these things, you get treated differently. You know what I mean? If you're going to your black colleague's funeral and you're a white person, all of a sudden you go to the front of the line when it's time to get food. You know what I mean? Something as Ivar.
And Ivar.
Ivar. You know what I mean? You need to reject that as a white person yourself. You need to say, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? And you need to also understand that there's certain privileges that you enjoy because of the brutality that people faced in the past. And now they're giving them to you. And those privileges you do not deserve, they're unearned. And in fact, they dehumanize you because they make you umlungu, which is ubas, not umuntu, which is one of us. You know? So we need to do that work, and we need to implore institutions like the South African Human Rights Council and also support them in their efforts, because their efforts are being curtailed by the fact that there's a trust deficit between them and the public. The public don't feel that they're getting their full Bill of Rights. You know what I mean? They feel like they've got the tariffs, they've got the bill, they've got the receipt, they've got the invoice of what they must pay. But in terms of the rights that they paid for, with blood or with ballot papers, whatever it is, you know what I mean? They're not getting that. And no one is doing anything about that, you know. Now it's very easy for people to insult the Human Rights Commission or to try and use it to face their personal battles. You know, a lot of the reason why they got a lot of complaints for that episode, from what I saw from reactions and people that reacted to it, is people that were comparing that to maybe something that Vicky Momberg said, or Penny Sparrow, or Adam Castavelos, you know.
Katsavelos.
Adam Katsavelos, you know. So
No kafros inside.
yeah, you understand what I'm saying? So when he, or when the people that felt the Human Rights Commission and the Equality Court was too harsh on them because they were white, they wanted a black person to now paint with the same brush and punish and say, oh, you see, the Human Rights Council is hard on white people, but discriminates when it comes to black people. They don't give them severe punishment or whatever the case may be, or they don't call them out for racism, you know what I mean, or being racist or saying things that dehumanize white people. So they wanted to use this as a tool to justify their racism, you know. And in the way in which I handled it, or we handled it, I could either validate that or disprove it and prove them wrong. And so I decided that I don't want to fight the Human Rights Commission, knowing the important work that they have to do. Whether I feel that they're doing it correctly or not, their work is very important. So important that I need to support them in doing better where I see that they're falling short. And so that's what I committed myself to, you know, engaging with them further. And we will do further. They had one big request of me. They said, can you make an unconditional apology? And they asked, can we write it as well? So I agreed to that. I'll read it towards the end of this episode, so we can close with that, and they can clip that up, and then Ronaldo hosts and
The Kifness.
Chris Wyatt, Willem Pletzer, all of these. Uban?
Lokata swimmer.
Roland Skuman.
Roland.
Yeah. All of them can post this clip. They can post the clip. Nah. And I'm saying that because I doubt they will post the clip. I doubt they will post the clip. But, I felt that it's very important to also say that apologizing does not always mean folding. Doesn't mean folding. There are certain things that you don't want to be dragging on.
Say that again. Apologizing.
Apologizing does not mean folding. Apologizing also means that you accept the responsibility for your actions as well. You take accountability. And apologizing doesn't mean you're wrong. Just means you have a heart. You've got empathy. And if you can see that someone is hurt or being hurt by something that you're doing, you need to apologize. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? So all of that, I guess, was my personal response to it. On the other hand, though, the SA Human Rights Commission also, in our meeting, spoke about the precedent that was set by the Constitutional Court in the Kill the Boer case. So like I said, you have to be smart about these things. There's a ruling against the K word in the instance of Ronaldo Gos. There's a ruling against animalization of people in the Penny Sparrow, Vicky Momberg case. There's a ruling against the K word as well in the Katsavelos case, the Adam Katsavelos case, which is the same case that is being used to bring Ronaldo Gos to the Equality Court. Now, going to the Equality Court is the final step after you have failed to either mediate or to correct any offenses that, you have likely to have committed, or there's prima facie evidence found by the SA Human Rights Council's investigators against you. It's the last resort. The mere fact that Ronaldo Gos is going to the Equality Court shows that he's more willing to fight to say what the courts have already ruled should be forbidden than he is to actually move on and contribute to nation building. You see, for me, my effort is nation building. That whole episode, everything that we do is about nation building, cohesive nation building. I'm not trying to divide people. I'm not trying to say things that are divisive. I'm being honest. There's certain honest conversation that we need to have, and we need to have them knowing that I'm not going to get angry if something you say hurts me. And at the same time, you also cannot just shut down because you are hurt by something that I'm saying. You know what I mean? We need to be mature about it. The nation building direction is the direction that I'm encouraging because that's what this country needs. It's falling apart. You know what I mean? We're ripping each other apart at the seams. Any chance we get, we try to bring each other down. We see it everywhere, not just in social media, in traffic. You know what I mean? There's a CIA with 15 people, and when it comes and cuts in front of you on Sloan, you get angry. But you're not even in a rush. You're not going anywhere. It's not delaying you by half a minute, but you get angry. And the work that is being done by the Human Rights Commission can only be effective if we are willing participants. So I'd like us to go have some more meetings. I don't know if you know Professor Maldingos.
No. I only just know about him in the media. I've never met him.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I just met him, so I've seen him in the media. He's also heading up a special department or division of the SA Human Rights Commission, the anti-racism department.
Also, there's a department like that.
They just started.
Okay.
I think it's a couple months old.
Okay.
So they're responding to the need. They are also watching what is happening. They are also aware that there's third forces, there's international, players and actors that are trying to sow division. South Africa has already been a victim of one color revolution, during the Zuma administration. So we could be victim of another color revolution anytime. And this time it seems like they're trying to split us across class lines because they know that the racial split is not going to ever yield a 50-50 split. So the only way they can split us now is across class lines. They feel like over the past 31 years, there's enough black people that have moved into the middle strata.
Yeah.
Let's say, because they're not permanently there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're 3 months and an eviction notice away from, So that buffer, they feel, is enough to invest in. That's why you see so much content that seems to be black right-wingers popping up. You know what I mean? It's very well promoted. It's boosted, and it's starting to create the impression that there are black people who don't want any reparations, don't want any justice for colonialism and apartheid, just want to move on as long as they can take care of themselves, even though more and more black people are falling into poverty as they are the few that progress and have the escape velocity, to get out of the systemic racism that keeps us oppressed even to this day. That work is very important, and also that work needs to involve people like us.
Who do you think is funding that type of division behind the scenes? Do you
Right
think
now?
it's overseas players?
Right now,
Do you
it's
think
Israel.
it's overseas players using NGOs? Who do you think is funding it?
No, right now it's Israel. All of this division, all of it is Israel funded, each and every single one. The division is pro-Palestinian versus the Zionists. It's the same class of people. It's rich versus the poor. Same type of people. They all fall into these boxes. There are certain people that have got money that know that it would cost their businesses to support the cause for Palestinians. And that's why they keep quiet, right? There are people with no money, nothing to lose, and they support the cause for the Palestinians because they know that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if they're doing it to the Palestinians now, you are next. It's just a matter of time because they're using the Palestinians to prove that they can do it and nothing will be done about it. And if you allow them to get away with oppressing the Palestinians, then you cannot complain when the tanks are at your doorstep. You cannot complain. So the case against Israel at the ICJ has proceeded. The dossier, or in South Africa we call it a docket. The dossier, docket, case file has now been published. It's public. You can see all the evidence of this genocide. Search it. It's been published. I think it was published on the 3rd or 2nd of April. So you guys can go through it and see it for yourself and see whether the people that are saying what is happening in Palestine is justified, deserve to be allowed to contribute to our general social discourse in South Africa, because we're a country that sees itself as a champion for human rights.
Where has it been published? For
It's
those
online.
for those that wanna-
Online. I think it's
but where?
either on the Justice Ministry website. I'll just check it now. Israel ICJ dossier. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. As of the 3rd of April 2025, the ICJ has been involved in several proceedings concerning Israel, primarily linked to its policies and actions in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and Gaza. Below is an overview based on the most prominent and recent ICJ cases involving Israel focusing on what might constitute a dossier in this context, essentially the key documents, arguments, and findings associated with these cases. So the key cases involving Israel is the legal consequences of Israel's policies and practices on the occupied Palestinian territory, advisory opinion in 2024. The dossier elements. The dossier here includes the United Nations General Assembly request 57 written statements from states and organizations and 15 additional written comments and a voluminous UN Secretary General submission on the occupied Palestinian territory situation and the ICJ's final advisory opinion. Israel submitted written observations arguing against the court's jurisdiction and framing of the questions as biased. And then with regards to the South Africa versus Israel Genocide Convention case, which is still ongoing, the dossier elements, this includes South Africa's application, Israel's written replies, examples to Judge Nolte's question on May 2024, observations on provisional measures and reports from humanitarian groups, example, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, alleging non-compliance. 14 countries, including Spain and Bolivia, have sought to intervene, submitting declarations under the Genocide Convention. So all of this is their way of destabilizing this country, getting us to fight. So whatever conflict can be fought, men versus women, GBV organizations now get funded. Now, the people that are funding the GBV organizations, all right, are funding them knowing that these GBV organizations' intention is to contribute to a good cause, which is the protection of women, right? What eventually ends up materializing is that these organizations can then be used to change gender relations in society, in broader society, because of their messaging and how their messaging seems to have a certain I guess racially and gender specific perpetrator. Yeah, like a perpetrator.
Yeah.
So you know what the perpetrator looks like. I don't know if you've seen those big GBV billboards on the thing, but you've never seen a blue-eyed, blonde-haired white man there. In the past week, blue-eyed, blonde-haired white men have been involved in cases of faking suicides to get rid of their wives or any of the case maybe. You know what I mean? So you don't see any of that in what is being advertised. And then the message or the connotation that is created by this messaging is that the perpetrator in these cases has got a black face. In South Africa, majority of the people have got a black face. 93% of the population is non-white. So chances are anything that you do in South Africa will involve a blackface some way, somehow, unless you're in Orania. You know what I mean? Now, when it comes to the other forces that are at play, we're seeing how the Trump administration has taken a specific interest in South Africa. I don't know if you watched the Emancipation Day tariff announcement of Trump. Well, I mean, this is my issue with a lot of our political analysts. They're smart enough to understand how the calculations were done for the tariffs, right? They know enough to know that it's misinformation that South Africa is charging America 60% tariffs. In fact, under the most favored nations tariff regime, I think our tariffs average at around 7.5% or below that, that we levy on American imports. So right now, what needs to be happening is that we need to be giving people the correct information to say the calculation for the tariffs were done based on the fact that they could take the trade deficit, right? Take away all the zeros. So let's say if the trade deficit was 17 billion, take away the deficit, and then they divide that by a nominal figure associated with Just give me a second. I just want to verify before someone comes at me in the comments. Because I know you guys are very much fact checking us in the comments. So maybe helping pay the bill for that. So when it comes to the tariffs that South Africa is being charged of 30%, right? I don't feel at all that us being charged tariffs is something that we should be crying over too much. It's something that we should be encouraging because we need to save jobs. Our factories are being turned into churches before our eyes, and as our our factories get turned into churches before our eyes, we lose jobs. We're also looking at the rest of the world to say, what is the Western or the developed world, the more industrialized world, doing to respond to the job losses, the fact that certain of their cities have come, into ruins. If you look at Detroit, that was known as Motown, the Motor City. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Donald Trump is supported by billionaires, all the biggest billionaires. But at the same time, at Emancipation Day, when he's making a presentation, all the unions are there. The United Auto Workers Union was there present, the Teamsters were there, and all of them are supportive of the Trump tariffs. So when we look at when tariffs are charged on certain industries that are protected, right? We see how those industries are able to benefit not only from better or margins because they can have better competitive prices, right? But those industries also have got other businesses downstream of them that also benefit from the activity. We didn't put tariffs on our steel. And now look at what's happened with ArcelorMittal, which used to be ISCO. The Newcastle plant is closed down. Now, the Department of Trade and Industry needs to assist them with, I think it's 1.6 billion that they're giving them in financing to keep the jobs. They privatized this company. It used to belong to the state. When they privatized this company, they also allowed international investors to come into the space. When they brought in those international investors, they also had to take away the tariff barriers so that they could import for any of the supply that they weren't able to make up for. Now we don't have a steel industry, or now our steel industry is contracting to the point where it's under threat. In the United Kingdom, in the UK, the last steel foundry closed this past week. There is no more steel being made in the UK. That is the country that started the Industrial Revolution. You know what I mean? So the way in which Trump is using the trade imbalances to now calculate the rates of tariff shows that those tariffs that he's announcing are not serious. It's part of a negotiation. And now that we've seen this whole entire retaliation coming about where he calculates the difference in the trade deficit to whatever the desired tariff is, and then turns that into a percentage for a reciprocal tariff, I guess. When our trade and industry department now goes into negotiations, we need to be aware of the fact that things have changed. We need to come there knowing that we've got something of value to offer. We need to know that also we're not coming with a begging bowl. We've got lots of customers. America is the biggest customer in the world, of the world. They're the biggest customer of Chinese products. They're the biggest customer of South African products, even though our products only represent 0.4% of their imports, right? Judging by how small our economy is and how small our country is, just having half a percentage of our just having half a percent of American imports as a whole is a very big feat. It is a very big achievement. Like 0.4% of all imports into America are from South Africa. There's other bigger contributors, but judging by the size of our economy, that is a very significant contribution. So there's a high demand for our products. The rand is also softening. So as much as Trump raises the tariff, the rand weakens, the dollar gets stronger against the rand, those imports into America or those exports to America from South Africa are becoming more and more affordable, even with the tariffs. So the threat of Trump using these tariffs to collapse our economy is completely false. That's fake news. It's not going to collapse our economy. It's not going to cause a jobs bloodbath in South Africa. Like, we should not worry about that. 47% tariff that was levied on Vietnam. Most American companies manufacture out of Vietnam today. You know what I mean? Nike lost 5% of its share price because most of Nike's manufacturing is in Vietnam. So these tariffs are also hurting American companies that has moved their manufacturing elsewhere. Right? So what is Trump doing? He's saying, Joel Osteen, vacate that big thing that you've got there in Austin. We're going to give people jobs. I'm sorry, but your church can go under a tree. People can pray for miracles, look up to the sky, have a direct communication with God. These buildings are now for people to work to support their families. We should want the same thing for South Africa. A lot of the things that Trump wants for America are things that we want for South Africans as well. We want tariffs. You know what I mean? I saw Likao has got drip liquids that are selling on Woolies. Without tariffs, right? There isn't a way in which the imports can be used to fund our own local manufacturing sector. So people will complain that, why are Likao's sneakers 1,000 rand at Woolworths? Yes, well, it's 700 rand if you minus the 30% tariff on clothing imports over 500 rand, right? That's how much you pay. Even when you buy yourself directly from Temu, it shows you on the receipt how much the tariff is, the tax. So those are the tariffs that you now need to pay. So we need to demand that our government uses IDC and uses all the other instruments that they have. They use that 100 billion rands that the Department of Trade and Industry wants to invest in black businesses to open manufacturing facilities so that Legao can also produce locally and give locals jobs, and he can have more customers that will buy his sneakers because more people have got jobs. More people are able to buy their kids' sneakers. You know what I mean? And the worst thing about buying drip sneakers is that you can't just buy one color. The kids want all of the colors, and kids don't know that their parents are poor. You know what I mean? They don't. Your kid is not going to stop from crying in the line there at Pick and Pay when you can't afford that slab of chocolate that they want. Your kid's not going to understand when you say, no, mama gana mal. You understand what I'm saying? So let's also understand how this business works. We're not kids. We now need to stop reacting like kids when we see the prices that are being increased because we need to import goods into this country. So I think the biggest thing that we can learn from whatever the Trump administration is doing is to observe and to take the best practices and to try and import them where they're necessary. With the VAT crisis right now, it's clear we need a DOGE, a Department of Government Efficiency. We do have a DOGE. It's called the Auditor General's Office. I think it's headed up by Miss Tsakani Maluleke. You know what I mean? She needs to be empowered to say, listen, this is where we could stop such wastage. We need Parliament to be looking at the Auditor General's report. We need Treasury to be looking at the Auditor General's report. And we need sanctions on those departments that are wasting money. They can't keep getting money if they're going to waste it, if they're not going to spend it appropriately, if they're going to misuse it. We can't keep paying for this. We can't allow the poorest South Africans to keep paying for this mismanagement of the fiscus. So those are other things that we need to start learning. DOGE did not hire people that have been involved in government or whatever. They hired young kids. Those young kids are using AI. Those young kids see something, and they see someone who's implicated in something that is wrong, they don't have a personal relationship with that person. With us, everyone in every single position has got personal relationships with people that are implicated in wrongdoing. And now we're asking them to turn the other way or to look the other side. It's an impossible task. We cannot be asking them for that. So we need to now employ radical means to actually get the savings that we need to ensure that the budget is, effectively utilized. Action SA has decided that they are going to, I guess, be the black DA. So they're cozying up with the ANC. They seem to have been working well within the Tshwane Council after they removed Celia's Brink as mayor there. We've got Mayor Nasipi Moya, who's doing great work and is supported by the public as well. So that relationship, as it develops, I'm hoping that they're going to act in good faith. From what I saw from the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwada, in his reactions to the budget, is that the negotiations about finding alternatives to cover the budget deficit or the budget shortfall with regards to the 26 billion that they wanted to fund using an increased VAT rate, that's got another, 24 days to go. They've got 3.5 weeks to basically amend the fiscal framework to avoid increasing VAT. It's a very big bet. Herman Mashaba is trusting the ANC with his life here, or with his political career. If the ANC turns around and puts a knife in the back of Action SA, we'll be looking at an increase of 0.5% of VAT on the 1st of May, which will be your second trading week as Mzake's Kitchen. So hopefully you guys don't have to amend your invoices and your receipts and your slips when in next year, when it's another 0.5% up, because I'm sure because of how much support we're going to get from the people that are watching right now, I won't be able to buy on the first Easter weekend. I've got family in Limpopo, Easter weekend. That's Latin. Easter weekend is our Christmas. So I have to go up to Limpopo.
The N1 highway traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah. All the way. Even if you go via Varambat, sometimes to avoid the toll gates. But the toll gates are busy. The first toll gate is like 16 rand, and then the second one is 73 rand.
Yeah.
Imagine, I was there just now being shot at 3 rand. Because they don't take cards anymore, by the way. They only take credit cards. So you need to
So it depends on the
debit card. If you got a check card, they don't take check cards anymore.
Yeah.
They used to take check cards. Now they only take credit cards. I didn't have a credit card with me when I was traveling. So with that added VAT, just think of the inconvenience of all the companies that have to now amend their invoicing. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work. And also, it's a month into a new financial year for those that start their financial year on the 1st of April. It's 2 months into a new financial year. No, 3 months into a new financial year for those that start it in February. No, in March. Yeah, I think the end of my financial year is at the end of February. My financial year starts in March. So it's the first big test of the minority government that is in charge, the ANC minority government. Yes, they've called it a GNU, but we've seen that really isn't a GNU. They've never sang from the same hymn sheet. They're always opposed in their views. They're always discussing things that are divergent. And as we wrap it up in regards to the budget outcomes, ANC is effectively in a minority government with 40%, and each and every single proposal, they need to go around to the rest of the table or the dinner table and ask for votes. And that's the situation that we're seeing right now. The MK was missing 13 votes. 3 people were were away campaigning. 10 people were not added to the list yet because they haven't they haven't passed the 12-month period which is needed to amend your list. So they can only add those additional 10 people from the 1st of June onwards. The difference in passing this budget was 13 votes. So effectively, the missing votes of the MK passed the budget. That is the potential power of the MK and their influence going forward, even though they're not in the majority. The second thing is that once or if the DA leaves the GNU, or what is called the GNU, or this minority government coalition, that makes the DA the official opposition, which means Dr. Hlophe loses his position as leader of the opposition should the DA leave the GNU. So the people that stand the most to lose from the DA leaving the GNU is MK. The people that stand the most to gain from the DA leaving the GNU is Action SA and the EFF. Now, EFF did not vote along the same lines as Action SA in this instance, but they don't need to because they also play an integral role in the same committee that's going to decide what is ultimately going to happen with the budget in the next coming weeks. So as they get into that, I feel we're going to actually see the true results of the 2024 elections in May 2025, an entire year later, because after this, the Division of Revenue Bill needs to be agreed to, which decides, Department of Vitamin Ting, this is how much you get. Department of Berry Buzz, this is how much you get. Department of Ginger Zing, this is how much you get. That's the Division of Revenue Bill. Then there's the Appropriations Bill. The Appropriations Committee Chair is Musi Maimane of BOSA, who voted for this budget. That's another step in which they divide up the money that we've all collected, Siakazat as a country. Every time you pay VAT, you are helping to Gazata for the country. And we've been gazetting for the country, and a new budget is going to be gazetted after, 25 days from now. And we'll see whether Action SA were scammed by the ANC, or whether they played their cards right. And if they play their cards right and they're able to avoid a VAT increase, I think that their prospects into the coming elections, especially in 2026, are looking significantly better, especially considering that they're fighting for the same voter base as the DA.
It's not a Monday unless it's NOTA Monday. You said you wanted to say something at the end of the episode?
Yes. So I'm going to get this. So apology and acknowledgement, right? I, the undersigned Ntamlo Baloy, do hereby confirm as follows. I'm writing this to address the complaint regarding my remarks made in the Hustlers Corner podcast, which premiered on 17 February 2025, and the remarks made in the G2G podcast with Galston Anthony, which premiered on the 19th of March 2025. I deeply regret the incidents and offer my heartfelt apologies for any distress caused by my words. My words were inappropriate, and I'm genuinely sorry for any harm caused. My remarks were awful and contrary to the values of equality, respect, and dignity that I strive to uphold. I am committed to learning from this incident and making amends. I recognize the gravity of my remarks, and I wish to apologize formally to all those affected. I wish to extend my heartfelt apologies to anyone who felt threatened or hurt by my words. I understand the importance of fostering a culture of respect, and I am committed to turning this incident into a learning experience both for myself and the people who follow my content. I believe that through honest dialogue, sincere apologies, we can work towards healing and reconciliation. I am committed to this process and to rebuilding trust. I'm also willing to reiterate this apology on the same platform where I made my utterances and take additional steps required to demonstrate my remorse and commitment to fostering a respectful and inclusive environment. My remarks were made as part of a dialogue on South Africa's oppressive past. However, I understand that this context does not excuse my words. I'm committed to addressing the underlying issues and working towards a more respectful and constructive dialogue in the future. I am dedicated to upholding the principles of human rights. This incident has been a significant learning experience for me, and I am committed to ensuring that my actions reflect the values of respect, dignity, and equality. I am committed to doing this through the platforms I have access to. I specifically wish to apologize to the white community for my remarks. My words were hurtful and inappropriate, and I deeply regret the pain they may have caused. I am committed to fostering unity and understanding among all communities, and I will take the steps to ensure that such incidents do not reoccur. This includes seeking guidance and training on respectful communication and conflict resolution. I fully acknowledge the harm that my remarks may have caused, and I undertake to not repeat remarks that are harmful and incite harm. I'm deeply sorry for any distress or division that resulted from my words, and I'm committed to making amends and working towards healing and reconciliation. I'm committed to changing my behavior and ensuring that my actions align with the values of equality, respect, and dignity. I will strive to be a better representative for my community and to promote a culture of human rights and Ubuntu. I added that. I shall participate in sensitivity training and human rights and community service administered by the South African Human Rights Commission. Thus done and signed at Johannesburg on this, the 6th day of April 2025. So, will you be my witness, Daswood? will you witness this apology?
Yes, I am your witness, together with thousands and thousands of others that are watching.
Millions. So,
Millions.
again, I want to reiterate that the intention is separate from the result of people actually hearing the content. I'm reiterating again, there was never any intention to harm, right? But because of the reactions and the responses, I see that there are people that were affected and were harmed. And whether that person is harmed by mishearing, misinterpreting, or misunderstanding does not matter. The matter is the fact that I want to fix harm wherever I see it being done. You know, those are just my values. Those are just my personal values. So no one should ever feel as if in my part, I would apologize to cover up wrongdoing on my part that I went out to do, intending to do wrong, knowing that at any point in time I could apologize and be absolved. No, I'm not that childish. And especially with the sensitivity of this matter and the sensitivity of race relations in the South African context, knowing where we come from and where we'd like to be in future, I feel that it is important for me to do everything I can to show that I'm a reasonable human being, that I'm a discerning human being, that I'm a loving human being, and that I am also committed to creating a better, more unified rainbow nation. The same way the father of our nation, Nelson Mandela, envisaged it, is what we need to live up to. And I'm committed to that. So yeah, that's it. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
It's not a Monday unless there is, or it is NOTA Monday. See you guys next Monday.
Hola.